Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Chase with Jace. I am your host, as always, Jace LeJeune. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed y'all football weekend. Even though I said football weekend, y'all might be thinking, Jace, it's beginning of spring. What do you mean by football weekend? Well, we got some spring games this past week, and it's a very exciting time here at Gridiron football, just because of a lot of the stuff that's really been going on around the country, and a lot of spring games been going on. Alabama, A&M, you look all across the country, there's a lot playing right now. But this past Saturday, well, it was the LSU Spring Game, and we're going to talk about it here. I know it just went live. It's kind of a random time at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. We're going to try to get this a little bit more consistent for y'all, so that way will be more and more viewers coming in and popping in. And this is a chance for y'all, if y'all have anything or have any questions for me as we go throughout this live stream right here, anything about LSU football that y'all might want to know about, feel free to comment in the comment section, and I'll try to ask or answer any questions that y'all may have here on the Chase with Jason. I appreciate anybody that's jumping aboard with us right now, and there is a lot to talk about, a lot to explain and recap over a hectic weekend with us, especially at Gridiron football, and over really the past couple of days we had our Gridiron Football League camp at Rayville High School, which was a great success with over close to 60 players participating in the camp. Great success. We'll talk a little bit about that. There will be an article either today or early tomorrow about that as well. So just recapping the camp, some of the standouts from the camp, and some the players that did participate in the camp as well. So kind of give an overall recap on what happened on that Saturday at Rayville High School. But really, we're going to talk about the spring game. So I'm typing in the comment section right now. So if you have any questions about LSU football, feel free to dive right in and ask. So before we start here on the Chase with Jace and talking about LSU football, we gotta really thank our sponsors. You see them pop up across the bottom of your screen, and I'm gonna go over them as well. So first of all, I want to appreciate the Johnson Law Group, and that's Mr. Willie Johnson. He does really an excellent job for us as big supporters here at Gridiron football, and he's one of the best trial lawyers out there across the country. I'll put him up there with one of the best. So catastrophic injuries, he deals with 18-wheelers and vehicle accidents. He does with on a regular basis too. Civil litigation. So any of those issues that you're dealing with right now, he is the guy to get in contact with. So make sure to give him a call. That is, you're going to see that pretty much pop up throughout this broadcast across the time area out here. So give him a call at 225-717-7070 is the number to reach. He's got offices in Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Zachary. So make sure to give him a call. Reach out to him at 225-717-7070. Appreciate Mr. Willie Johnson Jr. and the Johnson Law Group. So if you ever get in a predicament, make sure to give him a holler. So excellence and hope in action is their motto. Also, Mississippi State Guard. So if you're living in the state of Mississippi, you want to get involved, you want to make a difference, well, can't think anything better than Mississippi State Guard. So make sure to visit their website at www.mississippistateguard.org. It's msstateguard.org for short. So www.msstateguard.org. And then finally, Ultimate Apparel. Appreciate Terrence and the excellent work that he does for us. And if you happen to be a coach, part of a team that wants some really good apparel, make sure to hit Terrence up. Make sure to go to www.ultimateapparel.com. So appreciate all these sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't have shows like this on the Chase with Jace here for Gridiron football. And you also have the football huddle that you'll be able to see on Friday too. Can't wait to get the football huddle going back here on the stream too. So now we're going to talk about you guess it, some LSU spring football. We'll go right into it. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comment section. So if there's anything that you want to discuss, we'll talk about it right here on the Chase with Jace. And we're going to talk about LSU spring football. We're going to start about the game and just kind of how the game went. So I talked about it a little bit last week when I talked about here on the Chase with Jace. But last week, going into the spring game, there were a lot of questions how the game was going to come about. What's the format going to be like? And, what we're going to talk about here today. I mean, there's just really a lot to talk about last week when we dived right into it. As far as the game itself, it was like an offense versus defense format, and that's why I said last week you had some special teams involved too. You got a lot of things going involved here in the football game because a lot of the injuries. You look at guys coming in the summer, so you really look at all of that, and you don't have as many guys as you normally would want as you go into the summer. But you pretty much deal with the hand that you're dealt with in the spring. There are guys that were early enrollees as freshmen, so they use this as an opportunity to see what they can do. And that's really what it is. So it's really just an opportunity for what they can do on the football field. And we get to see a lot of young guys out there. We certainly did in the LSU Spring Game. And I'm going to show, as I'm talking, there's going to be a lot of pictures as well that Billy Metcalf, he actually went to the spring game and did an excellent job of creating a lot of shots for you. So I'm going to make sure to go here and show some of those pictures off and show off the excellent work that Billy Metcalf does for us. So hope you enjoy. Here are some of the pictures from the spring game, and I'll discuss on what really happened in the spring game. So the spring game pretty much started with a red zone period. So it was really an opportunity for what the offense can do in certain situations, so they got a really good look at what they can do there in the red zone, how offense would do in the red zone, defense would do in the red zone. So we got a red zone period. There were special teams, so opportunity for guys like Greg Clayton to get some returns in at the very beginning of the scrimmage. And then we actually got into a normal 11-on-11. And I'm going to talk about some of my takeaways from the spring game. And if you want to read more about the game, what I thought about the game, I would go to gridironfootballusa.com. And we actually had an uplift on the website. Andy Bryson did an excellent job of updating the website, making it look good. It looks fresh. It looks new. It looks really great. So make sure to go to gridironfootballusa.com. I have some articles talking about the LSU spring game. One of them just a basic recap, what happened, and then one I just put up earlier today about some of the takeaways that I've taken away from the spring game and how some of those are positive takeaways. This is pretty much as good of a spring game that I really felt coming out of. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the last time I felt this great about a spring game just so happened to be the 2019 LSU spring game. So I know that's a lot of high praise, and that LSU 2019 team was a great football team, obviously the greatest college football team arguably of all time. But I truly do think that this spring game, I felt just as good about that as I did with any other spring game, and with good reasons. And I'll go and break down some of those key reasons in just a little bit. But really the first thing is first. If you're going for a championship, if you're trying to compete for a college football playoff, you're trying to compete for SEC championship, and so on, if you're trying to go for all these goals, especially it's so hard to do so, you're going to need yourself a quarterback, right? That was the question mark last year, who the quarterback was going to be. And that question was for a long part of the year. We just didn't know who the quarterback was going to be for LSU. Happened to be Jaden Daniels. And towards the second half of the season, we saw Jaden Daniels really got rolling and really felt comfortable in the offense. That carried over in the spring game. I want to see what strides he can make for the spring game. And Jaden Daniels certainly did that. He really risen his level of play, and you could just tell. I mean, keep in mind he's wearing a red non-contact jersey, right? So keep that in mind. But if you look at it, he was still out there. He felt comfortable. He went through his progressions. He did whatever he needed to do to run the offense efficiently. And he did. You just look and watch the game and the numbers that he put up. I think he only had one incomplete pass the whole way through. He was like 10 of 11 for over close to 200 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. So he was nearly flawless. And that's what you want your quarterback in a second year in the system as a starting quarterback to do. He looked like a veteran quarterback out there, and I'm very excited to see what Jaden Daniels can do because we already know what he can do as a runner, right? He ran for almost 900 yards last year, and he put up some record numbers, single-season rushing yardage records at LSU last year. And if he can do that as a passer, just go through your second, third read, and then take off instead of going through your first read, then running. That's going to make him more dangerous as a runner. So defenses don't have to spend all their energy trying to defend him as a runner. They won't have to try to do that as a passer, and then everything will also follow through. So if Jaden Daniels can, take that next step in his game as a passer, which I've seen him do in the spring game, then he is going to be very dangerous this season. Now let's talk about Garrett Nussmeier, his backup. Garrett Nussmeier, I really think that the quarterback position, this quarterback room is going to be one of the best in the entire country. I truly believe that, if not the best. So Andy Bryson, what's up, boss? How's everything going? Appreciate you watching the live stream. So Andy wants to know, how is the running back group looking? Well, Andy, so the running back group, if you look at the spring game, you had 2 guys at the running back position that played in the spring game that are scholarship guys. So the first one is Noah Cain. And LSU really likes Noah Cain, and I can see why. There was one play, if you look at the stat sheet, Noah Cain didn't really run for any yards in the spring game, but what he did do that really impressed me a whole lot in the spring game was on one particular play, Harold Perkins came on inside blitz, and you can tell that the way the defensive line was stunning, they're opening it up for Harold Perkins to try to get to the quarterback. Noah Cain got in there and pretty much stonewalled Harold Perkins and picking up the blitz. So that really impressed me. So they obviously feel comfortable with Noah Cain being out there as the number 1 back right now. Trey Holly, he is the freshman from Union Parish, and he reminds me, the more I watch Trey Holly play, the more he just reminds me of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, just the way his frame and the way that he's able to catch passes out of the backfield, I think he's going to have a really good role for LSU this year in order to do that. I think he'd be a guy that can come out of the flat, catch passes, and he actually scored a touchdown in the spring game coming out of the backfield. Jaden Daniels hitting him up for a touchdown. So those are your only 2 guys that are on scholarship at running back right now. If you look at the other guys, John Emery, he's still back, but he hasn't participated with the team in the spring because they want him to graduate, want him to obviously pass his classes so he can join the team back in the summer and the fall. So Brian Kelly said the most important thing for John Emery is to make sure that he passes his classes, he gets his job done, he puts his nose down in the books, and just graduates. And that way, everything else will be much easier. So he's just trying to get his stuff done in the classroom. You look at the other running backs, too. Caleb Jackson hasn't arrived yet. If you saw Caleb Jackson, he's participating in the track and field right now with the Liberty High School track team. And he's probably won't be one of those guys that runs in state. I can definitely guarantee that. So he's finishing out his high school senior year, but he's going to join the team in the summer, too. And then Josh Williams and Marnie Goodwin, those are also other names too. They're recovering from injuries and trying to get it back. So even though you only have 2 scholarship running backs right now to answer the question, Andy, you're still in a pretty good spot because 2 other guys are coming back. They're expected to come back in the summer and compete in fall camp. And then you have Caleb Jackson, who's a freshman, coming in. So you'll have at least 4 or 5 scholarship running backs that will, make a big part in the fall. Just only 2 of them are available right now. So that's the question. So I answered your question, Andy. So going back to the quarterbacks, you look at Garrett Nussmeier. I truly believe that this potentially could be the best quarterback room in the country. I mean, you already saw what Jayden Daniels did last year, rushing for close to 1,000 yards, rushing on the ground, throwing for over close to 3,000 yards through the air. You saw that 3-game spurt he had last season when he went off. He pretty much was the reason they won against Alabama, was one of the big reasons why they defeated Alabama. And then those 2 games before that against Florida and Ole Miss. If he can do that over a grand scale of a whole year, it's going to be a very special season for Jayden Daniels. He can even, if he has a season like he did in that 3-game stint, he can contend for the Heisman Trophy. He could really be a sleeper this year for the Heisman Trophy, especially if he puts all that together for a course of a whole season like he did in that 3-game skid. Looking at also at Garrett Nussmeier. Garrett Nussmeier, I thought, was just as impressive as Jayden Daniels in that spring game. Now, he was working a lot with the second group. He got a chance to work a lot with the first group, too, and I found to be pretty impressive as well. He completed 5 of 8 passes. 2 of them went for touchdowns, which I found pretty impressive, too. And he was working a lot with the second-string offensive line group. And he hit a big play to Brian Thomas. There's no question what Garrett can do throwing the football. I mean, he's got a rocket of an arm. He can make pretty much almost any throw on the football field. It's just about making the right reads, making the right throws. And I think Garrett Nussmeier is feeling more comfortable in doing that. So I think both these quarterbacks have taken the necessary strides. We already know what their skill sets are. We know what makes them really good. I think both quarterbacks have done that. So over the course of the season, I think that both quarterbacks are going to make a difference for LSU this year. I mean, both of them played last year. I mean, when Jayden was hurt, Garrett came in and he did this thing, especially in the SEC championship. He got a chance to play a lot in the bowl game too. So I really like both these quarterbacks, and I think you can't go wrong with either one. And I think Ricky Collins is going to be Ricky Collins in the mix too. He's going to be really good. He's just really young, and he's still trying to swim and getting to learn the offense. But you know why they really like Ricky Collins, and got a chance to see a little bit of him in the spring game, and you saw what he can do, extending plays and making plays happen. So once he gets really settled in and gets to learn the system that Joe Sloan wants him to put in, then he's going to be very dangerous too. So we like their quarterback group. So that's one thing I like. Also, another thing I like too has to be Kyron Lacy, man. I mean, if you saw the game, he had the biggest highlight of the entire spring game. You go back and look at it. How tough is this, right? He's 6'2", 213 pounds. He, in the middle of the field, right? He catches a one-hander in the middle of the field, knowing that somebody's going to come from behind and hit him pretty hard. But he makes a one-handed Odell Beckham play, not on the sidelines in the middle of the field. He makes the catch. Then he breaks off tackles and just runs down the sideline 70 yards for a touchdown, which is very hard to do. And Kyron Lacy was a guy that he was trying to swim a little bit. He was trying to find his role in the offense last year. I mean, everybody was. Jayden Daniels was trying to find his role. Even the veterans, Kayshawn was trying to adjust with Jayden, and really the offense, there was a lot to adjust last year. I truly believe that as far as a breakout star for LSU this upcoming season is Kyron Lacy. And you saw the performance he had. He had 4 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. He went off. He went off in the spring game and looked very, very good. And everybody knows Malik Neighbors. I think Malik Neighbors will come in as your number 1. But the question is, who's going to be number 2? That's really the main question right here. And the number 2 option, everybody talks about Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas, number 2 option. Kyron Lacy can be in the mix. I mean, 6'2", 213 pounds. He had that 170-yard touchdown grab, but he looked really good too. He had a couple other catches as well. Brian Thomas had a couple of touchdowns in the game. He had a deep bomb he caught from Garrett Nussmeier So Brian Thomas, I mean, he's just a force of nature. I thought he was going to have a special season last year, and he showed bright spots last year. So you put Kyron Lacey, you put Brian Thomas together, man, I mean, who you going to cover one-on-one? That's my question. You leave Malik Neighbors one-on-one, you leave Kyron Lacey one-on-one, Brian Thomas, and don't forget, when you haven't seen him yet, Aaron Anderson. Aaron Anderson comes in from Alabama, was in the car where he was an incredible football player, a dynamic playmaker. And if there's a player that he often reminded me of, it was Tyreek Hill from Kansas City Chiefs. So put him in the slot. You got Mason Taylor tied in. I truly believe you lose a couple of guys like Jeray Jenkins, like Kayshon Boutte, but I believe this receiving core has a chance to be just as or even more dangerous than last year. Landon Abieta had a touchdown grab in the spring game. You look at some of the freshmen, Kyle Parker, Shelton Sampson's coming in. Jalen Brown's a 5-star, comes in. There's a whole lot to like. Chris Hilton, I believe he's back healthy too. So really a lot to like from this receiving core. And I'm excited to see what we got in the fall. And I think Jaden is salivating right now to see what the receivers that he's going to throw to. So I know he can't wait as well. Another takeaway I've gotten was the defensive line. The wide receiving group was the only group that really impressed me is the defensive line. And the defensive line, and that's actually a perfect segue, Andy. I know you just asked that. What about the big guys up front? Defensive line, oh my goodness. This is as deep as a defensive line probably since the Miles days, like in the middle 2010s, like 2011. I think this is as talented as a defensive line as I've seen since around that time period, 2012, 2011. That 2019 LSU defensive line was good, but I don't think it was as deep as the 2011 one. But this defensive line is really good. You look in the inside. I mean, Mason Smith, Makai, Wingo, they weren't even playing. They weren't even playing the spring game. And those guys, when healthy, they're all SEC, all American guys. But you have guys coming in behind them, Jacobian Guillory, you got Jalen Lee, you got Paris Shan, just Jordan Jefferson. That's not the quarterback Jordan Jefferson, but this is the transfer coming in from West Virginia. But there's a lot of depth on the defensive line. If you look at the outside, you got Savion Jones, you got Quincy Wiggins, and then the jack position, I feel like this was a position group defensively that I really loved. I really loved Ovia Gufo. He actually sacked Jaden Daniels in the red zone period, and the guy he beat in order to get him was Will Campbell. And you saw what a stud he was last year. So Ovia Gufo is probably the leading candidate to replace B.J. Ojulari at the jack position. And also, you look on the other side too, Braden Swinson comes in from Oregon. He actually sacked Ricky Collins in the game, so he's another option out there at the jack position. And then Jackson Howard, he got himself a sack too. I think it was on Nussmeier during the game, and he's a freshman, a 5-star, number 1 player from Minnesota. And the coaches, they really love all 3 of those guys at the jack position, and all of them had a sack in the spring game. Offensive line, to answer your question, Andy, too, about that on the offensive line, the big guys up front, you can't go wrong with the 5. You just can't go wrong with them. Right? I mean, you have the tackles, and you have Will Campbell, a left tackle, Emory Jones, a right tackle. You saw what they did coming in as freshmen in the SEC, and they played against the likes of Will Anderson and some of the best top pass rushers in the SEC, and they held their own, and they were standouts. They did really good. They're all SEC guys as freshmen. Inside, you have Garrett Dellinger, and he's been one of your best. Garrett Dellinger. He's been one of your best offensive linemen, the most versatile offensive lineman. You saw him play guard, center. I'm sure he can play tackle if needed. And then on the other side, Miles Frazier, he's also played guard. He's come back. He missed a lot of spring with an injury, but he came back towards late in the spring and was a guy that played a whole lot last year, was a part of that starting 5 rotation last year. Charles Turner's been out at center, so there's a lot of other guys' opportunities, like Morin Martinez at center, Bo Bordelon at center. Garrett Dellinger, you saw him. He was the starting center against Florida State in the beginning of the year. So really the 5 guys they have up front, they're really good. But the key right now, offensive line-wise, is depth. And you need depth in the SEC, especially a physical conference. In the SEC, you're playing against the likes of Alabama, Florida. You just go down the list. Auburn, Ole Miss. You just look down the list. It's going to be a war every single week, and those are the guys that get beat up the most. So it's very important to get other guys to fill in depth on the offensive line. It's very important to do so. And right now, you're going to have a lot of talented guys coming in. You're going to have freshmen coming in. You're going to have guys like Lance Hurd, who actually was a teammate of Will Campbell's at Neville High School, and he was a standout at tackle. You're going to have other guys coming in. Tyree Adams, he's from St. Aug. You have DJ Chester, he's coming in from Mississippi. And those are all young guys. You got one veteran guy in the transfer portal coming in, Mason Lunsford from Maryland. That's about it. So I really expect LSU to try to go through the portal. The portal has opened up, the transfer portal. So I expect them to go back and try to find and see if they can get other guys. So keep an eye on that as we go into the summer for LSU to find a need there on the offensive line. Another positive takeaway I've gotten from the spring game this past weekend, you look at linebacker, Harold Perkins. And that was one of the things I was looking forward to watching in the spring game. Harold Perkins got a chance to work a lot with the defensive coordinator, Matt House. And if you go back and watch a lot, read all the spring practice reports I put up and talk about the spring game and everything. But if you look at Harold Perkins, last year, he did a great job of coming out from the outside and rushing the passer. That's what he did. He was a game wrecker doing it that way. But he came in on the second half of the season. That's where he came in at. But Harold Perkins, if you put him on the inside, you put him on the outside, see what he does, find a way for him to really wreck an opposing offense. If it was inside, outside, whatever way, make sure to add that as an extra arsenal to his game. And he's doing that with Matt House. And you saw a lot of that in the spring. He came in on the inside, on stunts, on blitzes, and it was very impressive. He had a tackle, I think a TFL, a half a sack. He was all over the place, and he was coming from the outside. He's coming from the inside. He's playing at will. He's playing at Mike, and he's going to be very dangerous this year. I think if you add that versatility to his game, you don't know where he's coming from. You don't know he's dropping back in coverage. You don't know he's blitzing. You don't know he's coming from the edge, the inside. I think he's going to be even more dangerous this year than he was last year. And he really came on at the end of last year. Coaches were trying to figure out where to put him, what's the best place to put him, whether it was on the outside, and he got a lot more playing time at the end of the season. He was just trying to figure it out, the SEC, the speed of the game. I think coming in this year, he is going to be a guy to watch. So make sure to keep an eye on what was number 40 is now number 4. Harold Perkins this year. He has the chance to be a superstar in college football. Mark my words there. Harold Perkins. And another reason why I think he's going to be a superstar and even a better player than he was as a freshman, his counterpart, Omar Speights. Omar Speights is the other linebacker. Remember, LSU is running a 4-2-5 defense in Matt House's system. So with him being the other linebacker, Omar Speights, he's a thumper. I mean, he's built a whole lot like Devin White was built. 6'1", 235, 240 pounds, but really like Devin White, he can go sideline to sideline. There was one play I saw where one of the quarterbacks threw an outlet pass to the running back, and Omar chased the running back down. I knew he was an inside guy, and he's a pounder, but I didn't know he had that much speed sideline to sideline. That really surprised me, and that's going to even make me more excited about this linebacker duo. I really think this front seven defensively is as good as a defensive front you'll find anywhere in the country, especially with that deep defensive line I told you about, and with Omar Speights and Harold Perkins standing side by side in the 4-2. Now you're talking about the 5 part, the 4-2-5, right? You got to talk about the DBs. I throw my hands up because it's a big question mark right now, and there weren't a lot of questions being answered in the spring game about that. If there was one answer that you really got from the secondary, it's probably because there was a guy that you didn't really think about that's still on the team, that's more of a veteran. Because you look at the DBs, everybody's talking about the guys that are transfers, the former 5-stars that are coming in, the guys that were Division I cornerbacks or DBs somewhere else. But a guy that really made a statement, and I think he made even more of a statement than Kyron Lacy did, because Kyron Lacy was in the rotation with the number ones at wide receiver. You saw him every single day I was out there. The starting rotation at wide receiver, it was Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, and Kyron Lacy. So you expected Kyron Lacy, with his skill set, with his measurables, with his ability to break out. This one was, this was a surprise. I think the biggest surprise I took away from the spring, it was LaTerrence Welsh. It was a cornerback. If you're familiar with LaTerrence Welsh, if you follow LSU football really deeply, you've probably heard the name before. But he came from Acadiana. He played at Acadiana, was a cornerback, was a standout cornerback for them, and he was a big reason why they won back-to-back state championships in the Class 5A level in Louisiana. He's coming to his second year, and with the cornerbacks, a lot of the cornerbacks being gone, actually all the starting quarterbacks being gone. Mekhi Garner being gone. You look at Jarpinar Converse as well. Colby Richardson from Manise State. That was a transfer. This cornerback room is really new. So there's a lot of questions. Is it going to be J.K. Johnson from Ohio State? Is it going to be Denver Harris from Texas A&M? Is it going to be Zy Alexander from Southeastern? It's going to be Deuce Chestnut from Syracuse. There's a lot of new faces. But a guy that can probably win that cornerback job, and it's a new name in the hat, but it's actually a familiar name, is LaTerrence Welsh. LaTerrence Welsh, every time he was tested, that spring game, he passed. He was on Chris Hilton a lot, and Chris Hilton has some serious speed. You saw what he did in the Texas Bowl in the last play of the season back in 2021, the 2021 season. So that was the last play of the year. LaTerrence Welsh locked down Chris Hilton. And he had a couple pass deflections at the end of the tackle, but for the most part, every time they threw it his way, it was an incompletion. He was a lockdown cornerback, and LaTerrence Welsh, that was really a statement by LaTerrence Welsh in that spring game he did. Say, hey guys, don't forget about me. I know we got all these transfers coming in, and it's a talented group, but hey, don't forget about me. And it was a rough day for the DBs. Like, I went over the numbers. Both Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, they combined for 4 touchdowns thrown in that game. Only just a couple incomplete passes. They look sharp. And you also got to look that you're going to have to take things with a grain of salt. There are a lot of questions with the DBs because there's a bunch of new faces there. But also, look at the safeties. Your 2 starting safeties weren't playing. Greg Brooks wasn't playing. Major Brooks wasn't playing. So, at the safety position, they're like some of the backup guys, and you're going up against one of the best receiving corps in the SEC that LSU does have, and some of those things, especially in the veteran offense, that's going to probably be more ahead of the pace than the LSU defense, just because of the familiarity there. Things like that are going to happen, and that's why the wide receivers went off in that spring game at LSU. But DBs wise, LaTerrence Welsh, he was a guy that was definitely a big winner from that secondary group. So those are some of my positive takeaways. You can actually read the whole article. I did an article about the big, really takeaways I've taken away from that spring game that make me excited about this year, and why LSU has a legitimate shot at not only defending their SEC West title, but also competing for an SEC championship and possibly a college football playoff berth. So check that out. GridironFootballUSA.com, and you can go back in the article before that, talk about the actual game. You can go back and look at the stats, the official numbers, what exactly happened. There were some big plays, a lot of big plays in that game. You look at, obviously, the Conor Lacey touchdown. You saw that. You saw an interception for a touchdown by Whit Weeks. And how about the freshman stepping up? He actually picked off Ricky Collins. So a freshman battle right there. And Ricky Collins, it was a rough day just because of, the group he was working with, a lot of walk-ons he was working with. But Whit Weeks is a player that is going to try to throw his hat into the ring as far as getting a lot of playing time behind Harold Perkins and Omar Spates at linebacker. There were a lot of big plays from that game. I love how the game ended in a tie, too. I just found that was really funny. With the offense playing against the defense, the game ended in a tie. And then Brian Kelly ended the press conference by saying, yeah, we should have gone for 2. And that's kind of going back to the when he went for 2 against Alabama. So I was pretty good job there by Brian Kelly to say that at the very end. Those are just some of my takeaways from the LSU Spring Game. For the most part, like I said before, like I said at the very beginning, if you're just joining this broadcast, this live stream, I said at the very beginning, I don't think I've been as excited coming off a spring game probably since 2019. I had a lot of excitement going into that spring game with Burrow and company and how that team was going to be. So I think this year, I'm just as excited as that, to be honest with you. Another question from Andy. Thoughts on the NFL draft? So a lot of talent in this NFL draft, and from an LSU perspective, probably not as top-heavy as in years past when you're looking at first-round picks, especially not like 2019 when there was like first-round picks just every 2 or 3 picks from LSU off a 2019 draft. Or 2020 draft, I would say, whatever way you're looking at it. But this year's draft, as far as LSU is concerned, there may be one guy that gets drafted in the first round, and I'll have to say it's B.J. Ojulari. I think if anybody has a chance at the first round, it's probably B.J., but most likely he's probably going to be early second round for LSU. So B.J. Ojulari, I like getting drafted. Now, everybody can say what they want about Kayshon Boutte, but he is a playmaker. You saw enough what he can do back in his freshman year, his first 2 years in LSU, but before the injury. And I'm sure the injury has really hampered him a lot, the injury he suffered against Kentucky. But if it goes back to that form, then he's as dynamic as any receiver in this draft. So I think someone will end up taking a chance on Kayshon, maybe 3rd, 4th round. I know it's a far cry from what everybody was saying before the start of the season when he was projected as a first-round pick, but he can be a 3rd, 4th round guy, most likely, if you're talking about Kayshon. Now, other guys I think will get drafted. Micah Baskerville, I think somebody's going to take a chance at Micah in later rounds. You look as well. I think Mekhi Garner is going to take a look just because of his length, his size, and he's a physical, long cornerback. And NFL guys really like that. So I have a chance. I think he's going to have a great chance of getting drafted. A guy I think might be 2nd or 3rd round, like 2nd, 3rd round. Maybe Jar Bernard Converse. If you just look at the pro day, you go back and read that article. This was a while back ago, but this is on Gridiron Football's website, GridironFootballUSA.com. But Jar Bernard Converse, he had the best pro day by far in that pro day at LSU. And he was motivated because he just missed a cut from the NFL Combine. But he put up numbers. I think he ran like a 4.4, 4.42, 40, and like close to 40-inch vertical as well. I'm not sure what the exact numbers were, but they were very impressive numbers at the pro day at LSU. But I think all the numbers he had would have been like top 3 at his position if he would have been at the NFL Combine. So he definitely had a point to prove, and he proved his point when he was there at the LSU Combine. He certainly did. So I think he's really jumped up the draft boards, and I think he's going to have a chance maybe second, third round. Jar Bernard Converse. I think Jay Ward will get drafted. And Jaquan Roy, who played at U-High, defensive lineman, the only defensive lineman from LSU to be in the draft. I think he's going to get drafted too, third, fourth round. But for the most part, everybody that's here at LSU that's actually going to be enrolled or have entered the NFL draft, those guys are going to have a chance to get drafted for the most part. Now, Anthony Bradford, I'm not sure if he's going to get drafted. There's, let's see, who else? Mike Jones, not sure if he's going to get drafted or not. There might be some guys that could be undrafted free agents, but there's a lot going on. There really is. So, but I'm excited to watch it. I mean, Thursday, tomorrow is the first round of the draft, and then Friday is the rest of the rounds. Second and third round, and then Saturday would be the rest of the draft. So, very exciting times indeed. So there's a lot going on at LSU, and there's a lot for me to cover right now too. But the NFL draft is gonna be a really good time, and everybody gets drafted by LSU. The guys I talked about here, go to our website, GridironFootballUSA.com, because if you happen to not be watching the draft, well, you can be watching GridironFootballUSA.com, because I'm going to be in tune to the draft. Every time an LSU player gets drafted, we'll put an article up that player has been selected by the team. So I'm going to try to keep up with it, and just that way you can get track with which LSU players throughout the draft get drafted. So I'm going to post a lot of those articles throughout this week for the NFL draft. And then recruiting. So we talked about spring game, right? We talked about the takeaways from the spring game. You go to GridironFootballUSA.com for all of that. I talked about some of my takeaways from the spring game. And then we talked about the NFL draft coming up, right? Some of the guys that may get drafted in the NFL. But there's some recruiting news too. And you can actually go to GridironFootballUSA.com for this. I just posted an article about it. Now I'm about to post an article about it. About the other one. But we got LSU recently had 2 commits come in. One of them was Deshaun McBride. Deshaun McBride plays at Denham Springs. He's a 4-star safety. He's very long, 6'3", 6'2", very long safety. And he actually has had a lot of picks last year. I think he had 9 interceptions last year for the Yellow Jackets, and they have a really good defensive backfield. Him, Mason Varese is another guy I wrote about at cornerback. He's getting some Division I offers, but he's long, he's rangy. He said he's trying to work on getting more physical, but he has excellent ball skills. Clearly, by the 9 interceptions I told you about, nobody wants to try throwing it his way. He's going to be a special player at LSU. So check that article too. I got a chance to even talk to Deshaun, and Deshaun gave me his thoughts about his commitment. He committed to LSU after making the visit at the spring game. So go and check it out. Great young man. Very happy for him as well. Not just because he committed to LSU, but that he made his college decision, and that he makes a college decision. And that's really the most important thing when you look at it. So. Congratulations to Deshaun on making his commitment. And then recently, probably just about an hour ago, this happened. So I'm trying to catch up with him and give y'all more information about that. But LSU just got a big commitment in Trudez Green. Trudez Green is a 6'8". Yep, you're right. you heard me right. A 6'8", 240-pound tight end. And he plays for East Feliciana. In fact, I actually called his first high school football game at East Feliciana, and he balled out. In that game, he had 4 catches, 3 of them went for touchdowns. They couldn't guard a guy. I mean, after all, how many 6'8" cornerbacks you going to find out there? But he's also a basketball standout too. So I think his plan is to actually play both I got to double check that to make sure, but I think his plan is to play both at LSU, and you got to be one special athlete to do something like that, and he certainly is. And we'll get more into his commitment too. That'll be posted on Gridiron Football's website too, so I'll get a chance to try to catch up with Trudez, and so Trudez can give me his thoughts on committing to LSU. But I think that just came official too. So within the last couple of days, LSU got big 2024 commits in Deshaun McBride and Trudez Green, both in the Baton Rouge area. So big times for LSU, and LSU's trying to make their way up in the recruiting class. I think they're a top 5 class right now, and this getting those 2 guys like that, both 4-star guys, then they're going to be in a really good spot when it comes to recruiting at the end of this class. But a lot going on. So actually at this point of the year, here on the Chase with Jace, I know spring football just wrapped up. We just talked about the spring game. And like I said, go to gridironfootballusa.com for all my analysis of the spring game when I think of it. But next couple of weeks since spring is done for LSU, we'll try to get some more things happening here on the Chase with Jace. Bear with me. I know this was a little bit later time than usual here on Gridiron Football YouTube channel. I'm going to try to get a more reasonable time. We're trying to get a really good time where we can do this. That way y'all know each and every week, when the Chase with Jace is coming on. So maybe 2:30, I'm thinking, or 12:30. I'll keep y'all posted on when we do that. But we're going to make sure to have a Chase with Jace show every Wednesday for you, talking about LSU football. And if you have any questions like Andy just threw out here today, feel free to add what you want to ask about LSU football related in the comment section. And we're going to make things interesting too. I'm going to start to work on it next week, but we're going to try to get some LSU players involved too. So we'll get a chance to talk to these LSU players, get to know them a little bit, and then profile them for the players that they are. So we're going to try to do more of those player spotlights for LSU in the next couple of weeks, get to know the players a little bit. So I'll keep y'all updated on what LSU players I do end up getting. But hopefully we'll try to get one, especially until we can return back in the summer. Maybe we get one every week, whether it's in studio here or we get one through Zoom. Either way, y'all feel like if y'all have any questions, anything you want to add when I get an LSU player interview, feel free. If y'all have any suggestions, we'll make sure to get your question answered as well from an LSU player. So we're going to try to get that started next week here on the Chase with Jay. So I think it's an exciting thing that we'll be working on. But hopefully y'all enjoyed the show. Again, I know I rambled a lot here, especially this one. I know Andy said we're trying to keep this within 30 minutes. But you know how I like to talk, so sometimes I get long-winded. But I want to say thank y'all for everybody that's tuned in to the show here. I appreciate all of y'all's support here at Gridiron Football and the Chase with Jace too. Cannot thank our sponsors enough. The Johnson Law Group, Mr. Willie Johnson Jr., and everything that they do to help support us. Excellence and hope in action is their motto. Catastrophic injuries, 18-wheelers, vehicle accidents, civil litigation. They deal with all that stuff. So make sure to give them a call at 225-717-7070. They have offices in Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Zachary. That number is 225-717-7070. Also, if you want to get involved, if you live in the state of Mississippi, you want to get involved, you want to make a difference, I can't think of any other place to make a difference than Mississippi State Guard. So make sure to go to www.msstateguard.org for more information. And then finally, if you're a coach or a player, you're trying to get yourself some gear or some drip, now what they call it, go to Ultimate Apparel. Hit Terrence up. Does an excellent job with your bowl game jerseys too. www.ultimateapparel.com. That again is www.ultimateapparel.com. Appreciate y'all guys here on the Chase with Jace, and make sure to visit all our stuff on Gridiron Football's website. I mean, it's hard to miss it, right? I mean, it's right behind me, and you can see it in the bug underneath me as well. But again, go to www.gridironfootballusa.com. That again is www.gridironfootballusa.com. Follow us on Facebook. We're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. A couple updates here. We're just at Rayville High School for a Rayville camp, and we'll have more coverage of that coming soon. So whether it's today or tomorrow, at the very latest tomorrow, I'll put my article up talking about the camp, talking about some of the standouts, even some of the guys that we invited to our bowl game as well. So make sure to go to gridironfootballusa.com. Keep up with that. And then by the end of the week, we'll have a magazine with all the pictures and all the content that we had at the Rayville camp, including a lot of interviews that we conducted at Rayville as well. Appreciate all y'all guys tuning in. And as I was cutting to the chase here, the chase with Jace, as the Tigers, they are chasing for a national championship. Another one to add to their banner. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this episode recapping the LSU Spring Game. Make sure to catch all our content at gridironfootballusa.com. And I'll see y'all on Friday when we talk about the football huddle and we host the football huddle. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see y'all guys on Friday.